Thank you for joining us for another FiYA Conversation. I have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Barby Ingle, and she's going to be sharing with us a lot about her faith journey and some of the books that she's written. She has a ton to share. So thank you, Barby, for coming on today.
Thank you, Jason, for having me. I'm excited to be here and share, and hopefully the things that I share can help people in their daily life.
Okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that, all the things you have to share will be a blessing to people. One thing that I want to ask, this is a serious question.
Okay.
I've heard that you and your husband are the real life Barbie and Ken. So is that true?
It is true. Seriously, we are Ken and Barby, and I feel like that was a message from God. I said, I'm done. I'm not looking, and I'm not going here. And then God brought me Ken, and it basically was a sign. Don't miss this. And in that portion of my life, it was one of the worst moments of my life and times of my life. And God said, don't miss this. He would send me pebbles, and if I wasn't paying attention, he sends me rocks. They hurt a little bit more. If I'm really on the wrong track, he sends me boulders. And with Ken, he named him Ken, or he had his mom name him Ken years and years and years ago, so that I would not miss his sign, and that we could yoke together and build a life together here on earth.
Wow. So what are people's reactions typically when you tell them your name and then you tell them your husband's name?
They either don't believe us, or they try to call me something other than Barbie, and like Barb or Barbara. And I say, no, my name is Barbie. It's been my name since birth. And I happen to find my Ken. And then once they see us in action and out doing things to help the community, or working on stuff together, which we try to do everything we can together when we were going out into the world, and as well as in our home. And when they see that, that's when they start getting it, like, oh, this is actually a team. Barbie comes with Ken, and they're actually doing things. And so it takes people a little while to get over. It's not a joke. Our names are really Ken and Barbie, and it's okay to call us Ken and Barbie.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, I think that's definitely a great open door, like a good conversation starter.
Yes, and it gets people to remember you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I can't remember your name. And then they're like, oh, yeah, Ken and Barbie. How can I forget that?
Right. So I have a ton of things that I want to ask you about, but to get started, can you just share with us, what is your faith journey like? Like, how did you come to Christ, and how has that shaped your life?
Since I can remember, I was raised Catholic, and I start having memories at 4 years old, like most of us. And I always remembered I was a believer, and I believed. And when I would go to church and I would go to classes to learn about Christianity and learn about the Catholic religion in specific, I never questioned. I just knew, but I didn't always have faith, as in taking action and doing things in Jesus's light, or living my life in a different way. And that kind of came about as I got older. And I developed a rare disease at the age of 29. So I got to live the life I wanted to live. And I put in a lot of hard work. And I always had that core belief in Jesus and God and the Holy Trinity, and never really put it into action. And as I said before, I started getting pebbles and rocks, and developing a rare disease was kind of like my boulder. And God threw that in my life, and basically it said, stop, reevaluate. You can't keep going forward. And it's not like I was doing something wrong. I just wasn't living in God's light. And so it really made me stop. I lost everything. I lost my ability to drive, my job. Eventually, I had my own business. I lost that. And I lost my first marriage. And I went on to food stamps. I didn't have a place to live, and everything just was gone in almost an instant. And I had to start looking at myself and who I am. And we see in the Bible, God says, I am, many times throughout the Bible. And I started looking at who I am and how I wanted to be presented to the world, because I had tied all of my being into my work. And that's not who we are, is not what we do when it comes to work. It's who we are at our core. Are we creative? Are we loving? Are we passionate? Are we patient? Are we kind? Are we graceful? Whatever your I ams are, and they're going to be different for all of us. I started delving into what my I ams are, and that helped me create a better relationship with God and bring him into my daily life and start saying, am I living in his light? And am I fulfilling my earthly purpose that he has for me? And part of that is helping humanity. So it really, developing a rare disease put me on a whole new track in and what I was doing in life, and also how I was serving and raising his light, so that other people could see that through action we are able to do more and fulfill our earthly purposes.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that that's very, powerful that you are able to look at some of your, like challenging circumstances that you went through, but it brought you closer to God, right? Instead of pushing you further away. And, one thing that we were kind of discussing is that, there are times when people, they think that, oh, if this good thing is happening in my life, it must mean that I'm doing everything right, and it's a sign that I have the favor of God. But if I go through anything challenging, anything difficult, right, it means that I must have sinned. I must have done something wrong. So we can feel that way sometimes about ourselves. Other people can even, make judgments about us based on these things too, right? So, what are your thoughts about that particular issue?
Well, when somebody else tries to put that on me, I will physically take it and say, I don't accept your guilt, and I will take it off of myself and drop it away. I don't accept that. I know the good things happen to bad people, and bad things can happen to good people. That's the way of this earth and this world that we live in here. And it's not God punishing us by giving us an illness. The things that challenge us in this world and the things that are blessings in this world are gifts, so that we can live in his light and we can fulfill our earthly purpose. And there's so many times I have looked back on my health journey, especially, and said, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am today to help this other person. And how all of the different pieces are interwoven and strung together. So it showed me that it's not the good thing that's happening or the bad thing that's happening. It's that God is with us no matter what is happening. And that even in those challenging times, we pause and say, Jesus, I can't do this. Please help me through this. And we turn to him, but we should also be doing that in the blessings as well. And for me, I didn't really say, why is this happening to me? Things started being unveiled to me. There was a time where I had a full lung collapse and my lung was laying on my heart, and I got whisked into emergency surgery. And in that process, which happened, my lung collapse happened at church during a church service. And a nurse noticed I couldn't speak, and a nurse noticed that something was wrong and dialed 911 and got oxygen for me. And they whisked me into surgery. My life flashed before me, and it showed me that the things that matter in this world are human connection. And that time you held the door for somebody changes that path that you're on, but it also changes the path that they're on, and it's all woven together. And so when you're in a challenging situation, that you can speak up and choose a different way. And you can also choose to go, oh, this is hard and I can't deal with this right now. God, please help me through this. And And how we make those choices and decisions in life is really what matters, because the human connection is what brings us together. That person you held the door for might have been thinking, nobody on earth likes me. I'm alone. I'm struggling. Going through these challenges. And you held the door and they were like, oh, wait a second. A stranger helped me. Somebody stepped up and did something for me. And you're changing your trajectory and their trajectory at the same time. And then I also think back, like when I was, learning different things in the Bible, and I have trouble remembering all the verses, but I remember the gists of the stories, and then I can go look them up. Some people can quote the Bible and you just name like Matthew, 3, 4 through 7, and someone can read that off to you. I don't have that, but I remember the stories, and I remember saying, Jesus was coming into a town, and there was a bridge situation where a man was poor, and he was beat up, and bad things happened to him. And I knew Jesus took him and got him to people, and they helped him and lifted him up. But what happened to the guy who beat him up? I'm like, Jesus, where, God, where's that part of the story? What happened to that person? And we don't necessarily need to know what happened to that person. They will face their time with God when it's their time, and that's up to God for that judgment and figuring out that situation. But it doesn't mean that the person on the bridge did something wrong in their past to deserve that beating or deserve whatever challenge in modern times that we go through. So that's remembering, good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. And I've seen that over and over and over again. But I also know if this didn't happen to me, good or bad, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I think that my past is a blessing and my now is a present.
Yeah. And I think that this is really important for people, because I can think about different challenges that I've had in life where I said, like, why did this have to happen to me? Or like, of all the people, like, why did this happen in my life like this? Especially if I'm, doing all these things or trying to do what I feel is like the right things and all that. But sometimes you get those curveballs thrown at you, and it doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. It happens. Right. And I think that it can be so easy to focus on the things that we go through, that we are not as sensitive to what other people might be going through. Right. Because I guess for everyone, right, the grass can always seem greener on the other side. Someone could say, oh, I wish I could trade this difficulty for the difficulty that you had. But it's like, if God wanted it to be that way, then it would have been the reverse.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
So, yeah.
And going through life and the different challenges, there's times I see myself climbing on a mountain, and I'm in what I think is a valley of the mountain, but I've been climbing up the mountain every year. I'm going up and up and up, and I'm like, oh, I want to get up there. I want to get to that. And I'm in a valley, and I'm like, what's going on? How did I get in this valley? But you have to go through the ups and downs to get to the end goal. And there's been times where people have looked at me and seen like I was in a wheelchair for 7 years. I was bedbound. There were so many things I couldn't do. And yet I still was producing and trying to live in a good light. And they would say, I want to be where she is. I want to be able to do that. And I'm thinking, I'm in a valley. This is such a tough time. This is so difficult right now. And they're on a different path and looking at my journey going, oh, I want to be there. And it's so easy to say, well, they have it better over here, or they have it better over there. We all have peaks and valleys, and we're going through life. And if you can grab the meaning and the purpose and be with God and pray, and it can even be like each morning when you wake up, you say, God, let your will be done today, but help me see your will so that I can have the best day that I can possibly have. And it's in your hands. I recognize that, just start your day off with a positive affirmation and bringing yourself closer to God, and your day can be a bigger blessing. Not to say that bad things won't happen during the day or challenges won't come up, just that you recognize that you're not in charge. You're just going to take the actions and do the things that you can do to make the situation be the best that it can be.
So you mentioned affirmations, right? And I know that a lot of, most of our listeners most likely are saying like, where can I go in the Bible to find some affirmations or, something, encouraging to meditate on that will challenge me, but also strengthen me. So like where's somewhere or a few places that you go in the Bible to find that inspiration?
Well, like I said earlier, I can't memorize exactly where to go. And both of my brothers, preach. And I always saw them as my mentors to go talk to when I was having a spiritual challenge. And my older brother, especially in the hardest times of living with a rare disease, back in the beginning when I didn't have a path yet, I had to forge a path. I called my brother and I was like, do I just read the Bible from front to back? I've done that before, but what am I supposed to be doing? And he said, Barbie, if you just open up your Bible and you read the first passage that draws your attention, it usually is the message that God needs you to hear. And so that's what I've done. I've literally gone into my Bible and just opened it up to a random page and said, okay, what am I supposed to be seeing or getting from this moment? And so that's kind of, my brother taught me that. He's one of those people, both of them can quote the Bible and say, oh, you missed a word or you forgot this, and it changes the meaning. And they're really good at that. I'm not so good at that, but I am good at turning and saying, okay, God, what am I supposed to be doing? And then God gives me that message through his word, through his living word. But one of the Bible quotes that I like is James 2. And my father's name was James. So that's meaningful to me, especially. And my older brother's name is James, but he goes by Jimmy. And 14 through 18 talks about the deeds that we do. And I have patients that call me and they'll say, I know you're busy, but I'm having this challenge in life. And I say, but this is, yes, all of us, we have 24 hours in a day and we have so many things we want to get done. We're all busy, but this is what my purpose is to cheer you to and through whatever challenge it is that you're facing. And I am a cheerleader of hope. That's my earthly purpose. I believe. We'll see when I get to heaven if I was right. But I believe that's my earthly purpose. So when they call and say, I'm sorry to take your time, you're not taking my time. I'm giving you my time so we can talk through this challenge and see where we can go from here. Have you been praying? Have you turned to God? Have you done what you need to do to take action? And basically talk them to and through whatever that challenge is. But it's me taking the time, even for a few minutes, to talk it through. It helps them get on that path. Just like when I call my brothers and say, hey, I'm having this issue. What can I do? And they'll say, go back to the Bible, go back to God's living word and live in that. And I am that for other people now. And I never thought that I would be the person where people would call and say, what do I do? Where am I supposed to go? But with healthcare, it's a minefield, and we all need to keep our health as strong as we can. And our body is our vessel. So we have to make sure that we're doing the best for ourselves and being able to share that with other patients who call and say, hey, I'm having this issue. Can you help me through it? And sometimes I'll see something on social media and I'll feel drawn to that particular case because I have something to add to it. Or I'll see something and say, hey, you really need to connect with this other person over here who would be a great resource to help you. I might not be able to help you. It's not my expertise, but I think that, Dr. Jeff will help you, or Susie, or whoever it is, and can pass on that network, creating that human connection. You never know where your value is going to be in any specific situation until you're actually taking it on and taking action to help out, whether it's lending a voice, or lending an ear, or giving some words of wisdom, or turning somebody to God's light. You never know where you're going to shine that. And so it's important to remember to take action, not just read the word, but live the word.
Yeah, that's definitely important. And I think that it's also good that you mentioned, right, that maybe your gift is not remembering all of the chapters and verses for everything. But really, when you think about it, like the Bible wasn't written that way anyway. Each of the books in the Bible were written on scrolls, and there was no chapter or verse next to it. You just had to read through the whole thing if you wanted to understand the context. And I think that is something that, while the chapter and verse system is helpful because it can help people to find things easier, sometimes it's also been replaced as a way to do the work of understanding it in context. So people will be like, oh, verse 15, that's the one that I want. And then they won't read verse 14 or verse 16, right? But you have to have the context. So, you see even Jesus doing that when, he would say it is written, but he didn't always spend time trying to say where it was written. You just know if he's saying it is written, it means it's coming from the word of God.
Right.
Right. So as long as you can, at least remember the heart behind it, like what it is that God was trying to say, as opposed to the exact wording and the exact location, then I think that that's really all God wants us to do, is to at least understand the principles of it, more than, I guess, looking at it academically.
Right. And connect into them, and be able to say, oh, what would Jesus do? Yeah. How would I get through this situation? Jesus didn't, on the bridge, Jesus didn't follow the bad guy. He helped the good guy. Mm-hmm. So let earthly things be earthly. We have a judicial system, and we need to get that right. That's been corrupted, just like many of the systems here on earth. But we have that earthly system. Jesus would say, this is a earth law. This is a earth situation. So, pay attention to both, but live in his light as much as you can. And that helps other people live in his light, and makes a better world.
So, like, what is one of the things, because you had mentioned your role in healthcare and everything. So what is something that gives you the motivation every day to be a health advocate?
Before as a health advocate, I was a cheerleader, and I believe my earthly purpose. When I was 4, I told my dad I was going to be a cheerleader the rest of my life. I'd just seen some cheerleaders at a Diplomat soccer game in Washington, D.C., and I said, I want to do what they're doing. And not really understanding at 4 years old, what it really meant to be a cheerleader, and all the life lessons that would teach me with time management and responsibility, and being a motivation. But as I grew up and learned these skills, I held on to them. And when I was 29, I developed the rare disease, and I had to change from a physical cheerleader that's down on the field cheering to a mental cheerleader, and take all of the things that I learned as a cheerleader and as a coach, and move that into a whole new realm of thinking and being and finding my I am. And so in doing that, it showed me that I have to pay attention to how I'm living, what I'm doing, and then use those resources to help other people. And it also showed me that we all have different talents and skills, and that's by design. We're not all supposed to be the end all be all, one thing you need in your life. We're supposed to be a community and have fellowship. And these are the things you learn as a cheerleader. You also learn, my dad would say, how are you down on the sidelines cheering and smiling and performing when your team is losing 50-0? And and when you're losing 50-0, it's hard, but you took practice, and it took having faith, and it took giving yourself grace and giving your team grace to get through that moment, and realizing that each game is a moment in that time. And so I kind of don't live by a 24-hour time frame, although we have to be at certain meetings and have time management and responsibility. When we live moment to moment and we focus on making this moment the best moment it can be, even if it's a not so nice moment or a challenging moment, making it the best it can be, and moving through that time, it helps us have a blessing. And really being a cheerleader showed me that just because you lose this game doesn't mean you're going to lose a championship. And in life, your life and how you live on earth, that's the game. And you have all these mini games in it. And when you die and you go to the pearly gates and you stand before God and you have your judgment, that's the end of the game. So what you do in each, or that's the championship. What you do in each of these moments in life are the things that add up to make the final score when you go for that final judgment.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think that's a really helpful analogy for people to really put it in perspective. Right. So just in your time of, being a health advocate, like what are some examples, some testimonies you could share of how God has used your platform to, transform people's lives?
Well, I think one of the first is I did a local TV station interview, and I was leaving the building and my phone rang. I didn't give out my phone number, but somehow this woman found the resource, and she found my cell phone number and called, and she said, "I've been laying in bed for 7 years waiting to die because my doctor told me I have this rare disease and I'm going to die. And I just saw you on TV and you have the exact same rare disease, and seeing you up and mobile and doing something about it and taking action has shown me that I don't need to lay here and die anymore. I'm going to get up and live life, and what life I have." And so seeing that hearing that for me was one moment that really stood out to me. I've had people say, hearing my testimony, they started going back to church and having fellowship around them, getting around people in life that are also going through challenges, but know that it doesn't mean you're good or bad when you have those challenges. And they just need to get around different people and get into God's word so that they could have that same clarity in their lives that I was finding. Sharing my books, and I did figure out I have a learning disability. I grew up with a learning disability. Reading a book is difficult to me. And I never imagined in my entire life that I would write a book, and I've written 11. And it's because of God and living in his light that I was able. My first book took 6 years. Now I can do a book in a few months. And having that strength and courage to go through my own challenges with the learning disability to end up writing a book when it's difficult to even read a book. And God showed me that is the way. And in doing so, I could reach more people. And so I was able to reach people around the world, and I'm in many libraries around the world with different books, and so really sharing what my struggles have been and my journey, and ways to overcome some of the challenges that we face here on earth with other people has been the way that I've been able to take action to make the changes that I needed in my own life to better my relationship with God, as well as to be a light for other people, to show them, hey, here's the truth and the light and the way. And that's my actions take it to the other people so that they can then see, if Barby can do it, I can do it too. And it's not like a make-believe as a child playing with your Barbie dolls. It's a, hey, this person is actually doing the actions. And if she can do it, I can do it. And I've heard many patients say, seeing you go through, knowing your challenges, seeing you go through them and still accomplish things like writing legislation. I've written or co-written 7 bills. 2 of them are now law. 2 of them are going through the House of Representatives here in Arizona right now. And people seeing like, oh, yeah, you're not only have you been down this path and had this journey and had these experiences, but you're using them to help get better laws, help get access to individualized care here on Earth, and follow through, even though it might take me longer than it takes the next person. Following through on the goals and my life purpose helps other people see they can do it too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of people don't see the true power in policy, right? And how this is how things are run, right? And so for people who say, I'm not interested in politics, I don't care about that, right? I think that they're missing that all the things that happen in their lives are a result of what somebody else fought for.
Right.
Because
Someone else's moral code.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, if we just let other people make all the decisions for us, right, then we have to also suffer the consequences if what they decided is not in our best interest. So I think it's really good that you got involved in politics. I want to ask you a little bit more about that.
Okay.
Also, you mentioned the public library, like the importance of that, right?
Yes.
There's so many times I can remember, especially when I was growing up and before we had access to so much stuff online in the way that we do now, just going to the public library was very important, just to be able to go research something, whether that was to write something for school or just out of, personal interest. And I've seen, at least in my opinion, it seems like you're seeing less and less people visiting public libraries. There's even been some talk here locally where people are, talking about closing some of the libraries that aren't being used as much. And I think that people are, maybe missing that it is still very important. Like as you, shared, even being able to go to libraries and, share your book with others and things like that is crucial.
It is crucial. It is absolutely crucial. And not just the tools in the books that we read and what's available. The library, you can go in for free and check out books and get the knowledge and gain that knowledge and use it in your life for free. But they also have other, crafting, and they have story time where, an author can go in and read to a group of children. And they have programs for older adults. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area on the Virginia side, and we had really good football teams. And I know people who went into the NFL and played. And though some of them, not all, but some of them were passed from grade to grade to grade. And had people gotten into the libraries and used those resources that were available, and didn't just have teachers pass them so they could play on the football team or the basketball team. When they got into the NFL, they were illiterate. They could not read. And they had to face that as an adult. And once their careers were over, go back and say, wait a second, now what do I do? And many of them, even as adults that didn't have that time as children in the libraries and seeing the value and resources that they can provide, they ended up going back into libraries. Hey, you can go to the library and check a book out and take it home and read it. Like, they literally didn't know that those were possibilities because they were so focused on playing the game. And the teachers were so focused on making sure that they had the grade that they needed to play, instead of really saying, do you have the tools you need as an adult? And so looking back, it's those resources in our community, starting with, a library and community parks and things that bring us together and help our human connection grow, and be active. Those are the things that we need to have in our lives, and we need to make sure that our youth have in their lives and keep that going. We don't need to be shutting libraries down. We need to be offering the tools and resources in the libraries to make sure that the people have the education that they have. I didn't get sick till I was 29. And I know a lot of children now that I got to live that full childhood, and I had a good childhood. And I know people now that they were born with a rare disease that prevented them from doing some things. We need to make sure they have those community resources and tools so that they can succeed and do well and do the things that they need to do to be adults one day, and help keep our country and our cultures and communities growing and thriving. And so when we lose out on those resources, we lose out on what goodness we can have as a community and in our individual lives.
Yeah, yeah. And as as you're mentioning, right, those like people who really do need some of these resources, I think that we have to understand that, sometimes it seems like within the body of Christ, there is a level of false humility, right? When it comes to even like something like writing a book, write a book, but it's like, oh, I don't want to tell people about it because then it's like I'm bragging on myself.
Pride, too much pride.
Right. But how will people know if somebody doesn't tell them? It's just like the gospel. It says, how will they know unless there's a preacher? People won't know just by osmosis or, just wishing that they
absorbed into you. Right. You're so right. And one thing that I have learned over all these years of developing a rare disease and going through the challenges was that people can be preachers. You don't have to be a theologist and go to a college to learn about what's in the Bible. Any of us, all of us, can pick it up and read it and start living our lives in a way that shares God's light and become a preacher and talk about it. And you don't have to be able to say all of the verses in exact verbiage. You need to be able to live the life in the Spirit of God, and know that you too are a preacher and your voice is valuable if you're able to pick that up and share it and do it in your own way. It's not going to be cookie cutter. It's not going to be exactly like the person next to you. And that is okay. It takes a lot of pieces to make a puzzle. And each of us are our own piece with their own talents and our own hooks and nooks and crannies and peaks and valleys. And once we connect into each other, that's what makes humanity. That's what makes the human connection. And that's how we learn and grow. So be proud in who you are when you're living in the light.
Yeah, definitely. Because that is how we give glory to God, right? By just saying, you know what, I will, let my light shine as much as I possibly can. Any opportunity I have to do that, I'll do that. I think that brings way more glory to God than downplaying everything. Oh no, it's not that big a deal.
Right. Absolutely. Can I just say that here in Arizona, we have a legislative bill. Another senator who I know wrote the bill, and it's to bring preachers into the schools, and they would serve kind of as a mental health professional in the schools. So like kind of think guidance counselor. And I was with a group of Christians, and they were like, well, what happens if like a Wiccan goes in or a Satanist or, something like that and into the school? One, the parent, that's written into the law, a parent has to give permission. So if this person's coming this week, you don't give permission for your child to go speak with that person. But if somebody's coming in to share the light and your child feels compelled to go in for a counseling session or to talk to a preacher and get guidance, biblical guidance, that will be there. And I feel like it's a good bill because I think it's up to the parent to decide whether their child could go and talk to that person or not. So that kind of gives you a filter as a parent, and you have the final say. But I knew if it was good because there's like a local Satanist, I can't even say church, but group
Mhm.
here, and their leader was mad. He does not like the rule. He does not like that a preacher can go in and talk to your kids and be there in school for a resource and a tool for our children. And so if he didn't like it, and he's going to the wrong side,
Right.
because we're letting light into the schools, then we know we're on the right path, and that it will be a positive resource for our students across our state. And hopefully we can be a guide to saying, hey, here's how it works, and make adjustments as needed, but also help it expand to other states and have that resource in other states as well.
Yeah. So like, how did you know that this was the right thing for you to do to transition into like more of a political role?
Oh goodness. I started working on bills back in 2009, and someone asked me to step up and help. Hey, you've gone through a lot. I just went into remission, and they were like, "Hey, can you come down and talk to our senators and legislators, our representatives? They need to learn about the challenges that people are facing." And so I got asked to come in and give my testimony, and I did that. And each year there would be different bills that came up, and people would be asking and me to come back and testify, or do you support this bill? Why or why not? You're a patient. You have this experience that a lot of us, a chronic patient, a lot of us don't have that. So I would come back and give my testimony, and new legislators would come through. But finally in 2021, I had a legislator who I had been testifying in front of since I started in 2009. But she never paid attention to me, apparently. Um, and I didn't connect with her. There was no human connection. And I had worked on a bill the year before, and we were having a celebration party, and she showed up, which she doesn't normally do. And she kept on trying to go to my husband and ask him questions. And he was like, "You really need to be talking to my wife. You really need to be talking to my wife." And she finally came over and was like, "Your husband said I really need to be talking to you. So tell me something." And I was like, "Well, I have been testifying in front of you since 2009. I have a lot of ideas. And you have helped me pass some of the bills over this time, but I have these ideas." And she said, "Well, let's get together and make them into a bill that we can present to the legislature." And so, having never written a bill before, I went home and I started researching law and studying, and it all started from someone years before asking me to get involved by sharing my testimony. And then, over 10 years later saying, "Hey, I have these ideas. Where do I take them? What do I do?" And somebody stepping in and being a resource for me. And now I know how to write a bill. Some of them I've written on my own. Some of them I've written with teams. And now I even have a legislative course that I teach, and I've done a free version on Facebook that people can go, a 4-part free session people can go and watch. And if you have an idea, step up. And you might not get it the first year. Some states it takes 2 to 3 years. Like California, it takes 2 to 3 years to get a bill from idea to law. But if you give up in between, it's not going to happen. And if you have more ideas, keep moving forward so that you can say, "Hey, we fixed this section over here, but now we need to work on this other law because people are falling through the crack," or "We created this transparency bill, but what that did was allow insurance companies to charge patients up front instead of on the back end where we could make payments, and now nobody can afford to get the treatment." And things like that we see, like, "Oh, this was, we thought it was a great idea, but it turned out it wasn't. So we need to fix the law on the books." Stepping up and sharing. And then as you work through the system, you can see like, "Oh, well, I could do more than just give my testimony. I can make some phone calls. I can write a letter. I can write a letter to the newspaper. I can write my idea down and hope that somebody else can bring it forward. I can find out how to bring my idea forward and what format it's needed in, and take the learning process." Again, other people, it probably wouldn't take 10 years to be noticed by the legislators you're testifying to. For me, it did. And once I had that in, now that particular legislator bought one of my books. I said, I have a book and I'd like for you to read it. And she said, sure. And I sent it to her the next week after I had that personal experience. And she called me up and said, I would like to buy 100 books because every legislator, no matter what side they're on, no matter what they believe, they need to read your book. It's not political, but it gives us tools and things that we can do as legislators to make it better so that more people get individualized care. And she bought a book for every single legislator in our state and handed it out. And even, 4 years later, people are still passing my books around to the new legislators and to people in constituents in their areas. And I'll get calls saying, hey, I'm a patient and my senator gave me your book. And, I need some help on X, Y, or Z, and I'm able to help them in those ways. And again, it just creates that ripple and keeps the light shining brighter and brighter.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely shows the power of a book, right? Something that God has put in your heart and that you took the time to put out there for other people. Right. And so for anybody who is on the fence about, oh, I have this idea for this book, but I don't know if I should do it or, how much of a difference it's really going to make. I mean, that right there is just an awesome example that, yeah, sometimes, God has things in store for what you do that's even like greater than what you can imagine.
Absolutely. God gives us miracles every single day. We just need to be looking around. Like I said, I have a learning disability. I never thought that I would be writing a book, let alone 11.
Well, as you were speaking, like I was thinking that it would be awesome. I don't know if you already have something like this or something in the works, but like a book for children that explains how they can get involved in the political process or even why that's important. I think something like that is definitely needed because so many young people have no idea how any of that works. All they know is, oh, that person on TV is running for something. I don't know. That has nothing to do with me. But for them to know, you know what, even as a child, there's certain things I can do to make a difference in my community.
That's a great book idea. I have one about how to interact. I have 7 nephews and a niece, and my 4 older nephews, they know I exist, but when they were young, they couldn't touch Aunt Barbie. They couldn't play with their loud toys. They couldn't bring flashing lights around me, and they didn't understand. And none of us took the time to explain what was going on. And so they just knew, oh, I'm afraid of Aunt Barbie. So with the 3 nephews and a niece that are younger, I specifically created a book called Aunt Barbie's Invisible Endless Alley. And from when they were born, my siblings read the books to them, and they knew how, okay, Aunt Barbie's coming. I need to clean up all my toys that like Legos that she could step on and get hurt. But Aunt Barbie can play Connect 4. So let's do this game with Aunt Barbie. And it gave them a way to learn how to interact with me so that we could have that human connection and be a stronger family in that way. And I'm very close to my younger 4 and not so close to my older 4. And that book was a great tool. So doing one for legislation is also great. And me getting involved with legislation and running as a candidate, my nephews, as the younger ones especially, have paid attention and have been inquisitive and asking questions. And one of them just joined the debate team at his school. The other one next year, when he goes into high school, he'll be joining the debate team. I took him to meet some of the legislators, and he got to sit in a town hall type meeting where a legislator called out my name, and he's like, my Aunt Barbie got a call out from this congressman, and thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so now he's saying, oh, Mom, Dad, can you take me down to the Capitol? Or these things I saw on the news that this bill was coming through and I don't like it. Who do I call? What do I say? So having that as a tool, a book could go even further. And I don't know if there's one out there already. Maybe I should look into that first. Maybe I could recommend somebody else's light and say, hey, here's something. But if I don't find that as a tool, it's definitely a great idea. Thank you so much, Jason. That is a great idea.
I think that it can make a big impact. But yeah, like you said, yeah, if there already is something, and maybe somebody listening to this or watching this, maybe they can recommend something as well for now. But I definitely say, even if it exists, if you have time in your schedule, I would consider it. I think you can never have too many.
Yes, it's a great idea.
Can you tell me about your latest book and maybe one of the things that you want people to get out of that?
Sure. So it's called From Wheels to Heels. And it's kind of a play on words, because one of the first things I did when I got remission was go buy a pair of high heels. So, but that's not really what the book is about, going from wheelchair to walking and the process that journey took me on, and how other people can find their own journey and their way through based on my story, but finding their own tools and resources that will help them with their challenges, because we all have different challenges. And the book teaches you that there's great reason for hope, because there's help. All you have to do is reach out and seek it. That's what I've done when I face an insurmountable challenge. I reach out to God, and I also reach out to the miracles and resources and tools and talents that He's brought into my life through other people to overcome those challenges. And I ask other people to do the same thing. Reach out and seek help, and that is where you will find hope.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it's going to, I'm sure it will already has helped a lot of people and will continue to. So I'm going to put a link to that also in the description so people can find it easily. And what is the best website, social media handles, any other ways for people to learn more about you and to get in contact with you?
On social media, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and that's all under Barby Ingle, my name, BarbyIngle. And I also am the vice president of the International Pain Foundation, and that website is internationalpain.org. And or you can Google iPain. That's how we abbreviate it. I like an iPhone, but iPain. And there's a ton of tips, tricks, and resources on that website as well. And we cover over 160 conditions, most of which are rare diseases, and give you, how to get treatment, diagnosis, symptoms to look for, and videos of each different disease, showing a patient spotlight and other resources on treatments that can help you improve your daily living.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And I'll include that as well, just so that people can reach out to you. So, Barby, thank you again so much for coming on. Like you had a lot to share. I know that this is going to help a lot of people.
Thank you, Jason. I'm glad to be here. And for everybody watching, go right now and give Jason 5 stars for Faith in Yielding Action, FiYA, which is what we've been talking about for the last hour. Go give him 5 stars so he can grow his platform, and his light and Jesus's light will be shared with others. Please go and share him and let him know how great he's doing and how he's touching our lives.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Anytime. Thank you.